Okay, so another case study from Zia Consulting, another of our integration partners, Jon Solove and Ted Stocklin. And I'll invite you to come up on stage as I'm presenting, as I'm reading out your presentations. So Jon has hi there, Jon. Jon has over 10 years of experience in enterprise content management and capture. He began his life at Zia as an ECM consultant, implementing Alfresco and Ethisoft, performing assessments, and training clients to use their implemented solutions. Jon then transitioned to a solutions engineer, leveraging his implementation experience to create elegant solutions and thorough demonstrations for current and potential clients. When he's not helping to sell ECM solutions, Jon enjoys cooking and being a dad. And we've also got Ted Stocklin, I'm hoping. And Ted is passionate about understanding process-oriented and data governance-related business challenges. He thrives when helping partners and clients identify process bottlenecks, implement strategic plans, develop streamlined processes, and build long-lasting relationships. He has helped countless organizations recognize the value of new technologies. Currently, he's working on content intelligence initiatives involving cloud analytics, machine learning, and classifications. So welcome to both of you. Thanks a lot for joining us for this summit. It's great to have you on board. It's great to meet you finally in person, Ted, because we've sort of missed each other loads of times, so yeah, great to see you on there, and hopefully it'll be in person the next time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Deepo.
Thank you, Deepo. I look forward to that.
Go ahead and get our deck shared here. All right. Okay, perfect. All right, go ahead, Ted.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much. My name's Ted Stocklin. I am an enterprise sales director at Zia Consulting. I can count myself very fortunate to partner with several outstanding Componize users here in the northeastern part of the United States. Born and raised in the Philadelphia area. I am right now in Toms River, New Jersey, as I like to say, about an hour east of Philly and about 1 hour south of New York City, for those who might be able to kind of put a pin on the map there. And Deepo, again, thank you very much for this opportunity and that wonderful introduction.
And I'm Jon Solove, Principal Solutions Engineer, living in Boulder, Colorado at near Zia's headquarters. So yeah, really looking forward to working through this session with everyone today.
All right, thanks, John. So our case study today details an international standards organization. A Zia Consulting client for over 2 years, they provide standards-related training and advisory services to 50-plus industries. These industries include, but are certainly not limited to, health and safety, oil and gas, construction, power generation and transmission, and electrical products. All of their standards and certification steps, processes, and functions are fully accredited and based on internationally recognized criteria. Our client provides a full range of services virtually. This includes all testing, inspection, and audit services. And to no one's surprise, like so many organizations, COVID-19 has driven our client to expand the range and availability of these virtual offerings over the last few years. So the situation, kind of the before picture, if you will. Prior to working with Zia, our client utilized Documentum for content and XML authoring. Working closely with Zia, our client identified a number of critical gaps. They lacked a single repository to address what they viewed as a wider range of critical capabilities, content architecture, and very importantly, governance strategies. They needed the ability to author technical standards documents, and once again, on the same platform, sought a greater level of ability and flexibility around critical integrations.
All right. So, based on all of that, there are really a couple areas that, we and they identified as challenges. With their existing system, they had a lack of metadata, so they were really not able to search and retrieve documents. And this could have been everything from finding committee documents that they used in order to write out their technical specifications, or once things were published, just difficulty in finding what they need. Kind of on that same idea, there's just a lack of organization and detail to folder structures. Projects weren't consistent the way they were set up. They weren't really templated. It was a kind of choose your own adventure of setting up projects. They also had a couple tools like SAP and Jive that they needed integration to, but were not integrated with. So there was a lot of need for really moving content around manually and dealing with it from that standpoint. There's also just a lack of automation overall, but one of those is, phases of publication production. They really just didn't have a consistent way of review and approval or anything like that. They also ran into issues with permissions. People wouldn't be having access to content they needed. And there were performance issues. So it made it difficult to even pull up documents in the existing system. So all of these came together to create a challenge for them that really required that they look at a new approach to their technical authoring. Some of the biggest risks that we identified in working with them and that we needed to be able to mitigate within our solution is user adoption and then auditability and history. On the user adoption side, they did most of their authoring in Arbor text. They're really comfortable with Arbor text. So, it was important that we give them a solution that is similar enough that they can just get in and work, minimize change management, and minimize issues with user adoption. And then on the auditability and history side, because they didn't really have formal workflow in place, there was really no good way for them to say, hey, this specification has gone through all of our processes. It has been reviewed and approved in the ways that it needs to. So we wanted to improve on their ability to, have that audit trail, that history of the content to prove that it was reviewed, approved before being moved into a publishing form. So the strategy that we took on started with modernizing their platform. So we are an Alfresco partner. We sell Entrerprise Alfresco. So with that, we were able to get them into an Alfresco digital business platform solution, which includes Alfresco content services, process services, as well as governance services. And of course, the key component here is implementing Componize component content management on top of Alfresco. So this handles, obviously, the XML authoring side of things. They actually are not a DITA customer. They have several of their own XML schemas, about 8 that they use. So while not using DITA and while not using all of the functionality Componize offers, it was really important for us to be able to bring in Componize to deal with things like injecting and pulling out metadata, dynamic linking, the release management side of things, but really just giving these features to the overall solution that the Alfresco digital business platform provides. I also mentioned earlier that there were needs for integration around SAP and Jive. So it was really important to them and to us that we could provide them a solution that was well integrated into those systems. So the final step there was then automating processes. We had before, email-based approval processes where someone says, hey, take a look at this document, let me know what you think. We wanted to get that into actual workflow within Alfresco Process Services so that we could then have reports, dashboards, and things like that in order to track the progress of the content as it's being authored, as it's being reviewed and approved. So results from this is that we then have really a clear path for migration from all of their in-house developed XML schemas to a single XML standard. So our goal is to get them onto ideally DITA, but possibly something else that we don't then have to deal with the 8 schemas that we're currently dealing with them. And this gives us a way to do that. We now have all the content living in consistent ways. So the overall kind of reorganization of document structure and applied detailed metadata. This was a pretty interesting scenario where they're using SAP to deal with their projects, their specifications, and the integration with SAP then gives us the ability to have project structures automatically generated, have template content put in, and really just allows for automation in ways that makes it consistent to use the system, consistent to find the content you're looking for, either through search or through just folder structures. I mentioned before that they were using Arbor Text before. They're actually still using Arbor Text, but now we're using Arbor Text, basically looking at Alfresco via WebDAV. So then we have that functionality available to them. But again, with that consistent project structure, the folder-based structure that they desired. So this gives them, again, that user adoption side of things, the improvement, because they're still using Arbor Text. They're still working the way that they'd like to. It's just that the back-end system is then doing a lot more. I also mentioned the Jive integration, and I thought this was a pretty interesting scenario as well. Jive was handling a lot of the committee work. So the committees that would define requirements, that information then from Jive was directly pushed into Alfresco with metadata so that it's searchable, so that everything is as it's needed. There's also functionality using smart folders within Alfresco so that the solution makes it, again, really easy to find content and allows people to use folder structures that they want that are actually virtual folder structures based off of the metadata. So let's see. So workflow is also a really important component here. And, as we mentioned, the overall solution of Componize plus digital business platform is what made this possible. We were able to create workflow processes within Alfresco Process Services, and then exposing those via dashboards to make it really easy for individuals to find the work that they need to do, as well as their supervisors or other individuals who are interested in where a certain project, where a specification is within its life cycle. So if it's still being authored, if it's in the review phase, or is approved and ready for publishing. So this is a really, really critical piece for them, and is really the part that they actually were most excited about after all of this is that ability to be able to really track and have audit history reporting on all of their processes. That was really, really critical for them. As I mentioned, the SAP SAP integration automatically generating that folder structure, again, was really a big ease of use boost overall. So this was something that was really, really powerful for the end users, knowing where they're looking, finding content consistently. So in the future, the other areas that they're really looking to expand in is, again, consolidating from their 8 in-house developed XML schemas to a single XML standard, as well as looking at Alfresco governance services in order to handle their content once it's published, as well as other committee-based content as well. So those design documents and things like that. When using Alfresco governance services, we then get all of the records management functionality that comes with it so that we can create disposition schedules, retention policies, things like that for any of the content, whether it's participating in the XML authoring or as a result of the authoring, the produced content on the other end, or any of the documentation that goes into the definition of the specifications that they're working on. So I think that's kind of the high level. And if there are any questions, we can certainly get to those, but I'll pass it back to Ted to talk a little bit about Zia.
Sure, thanks, John. I'll wrap this up quickly because hopefully there will be some great questions coming our way. Zia is based out of Boulder, Colorado. Zia Consulting has provided a full range of ECM, electronic content management, consulting, implementation, and integration services since 2003. So the company has certainly stood the test of time. Zia is an award-winning platinum system integrator of a number of key technologies, several of which you heard John talk about over the last few minutes here, including intelligent capture, robotic process automation, business process management, content management, and of course, Componize fits into our content management space. Our approach to implementation, the way we partner with an organization, both during implementation as well as from an ongoing support standpoint, are the two key pillars that have led to a 95% retention rate since that's been tracked beginning in 2003. So I'll just say, on behalf of John and myself, thank you very much, everyone, for the opportunity. And as I mentioned, hopefully we'll have some questions coming our way. Which John will answer, by the way. That will not be me.
Nice one. All right. Looking at the chat box, there are no questions. Just one thing that you mentioned earlier on that I thought I'd highlight is that Componize sitting on top of Alfresco. Componize is not just a DITA solution; it's basically an XML solution. Yep. So you're able to offer that to companies who are not in DITA, as you just mentioned, and they've got their own schema. So as long as you've got your schema, you slap Componize on top of Alfresco, and that's it. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. Could you just maybe using the little bit of time left, explain that difference between Alfresco Entrerprise and the Alfresco community, so that you did mention that, and people maybe might be interested in knowing that you've got the two options.
Yeah, absolutely. So Alfresco Entrerprise is the commercially available version of Alfresco. It is really more focused on large enterprise deployments. It gives you obviously support of Highland Alfresco, which is big. When Zia is the implementer, we are first tier support, and then obviously work with Alfresco for things that fall beyond that. But that support is a major component. But then there's also functional differences. The largest being the ability to cluster, disaster recovery, things like that, which are part of the solution when it's sold as the enterprise option. There are other things as well, but it's really the battle tested and true Alfresco deployment supported by Highland Alfresco with all of the active development there.
Okay, excellent. And I've got a question from Frank, and like he says, maybe you spoke about this earlier. What tools does your client use for reviewing content?
Yeah, so they primarily use Arbortext. So the Arbortext is how most of their reviewing is done, I believe. I might follow up on that to make sure. But yeah, they largely go that approach. I believe there is some PDF generation as well that they then can pass, through the workflow process. But again, in looking at trying to get them more deeply ingrained in Componize functionality, I'm pretty excited for what the future could hold for them with, Componize review and things like that. I think that could be a really strong component here. It's just a matter of again, getting them more standardized on their schemas, and moving in that direction.
All right, excellent. I put down in the chat governance services and process services. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So Alfresco process services. So there's three components. There's Alfresco content services, which is what you would kind of see as Alfresco community. That's the main piece. Alfresco process services is the BPMN2 solution built around activity, but it is the enterprise version of that again. So that gives all of the functionality around workflow, around the management, auditability, all of that around processes being run. The governance services side is records management and governance. So again, the idea of file plan, disposition, retention, all of that is implemented within governance services. And it's actually just basically a module that is deployed to Alfresco content services. It's not a standalone installation. Much the way Componize makes Alfresco, an XML aware solution, governance services really makes Alfresco a records management platform, in addition to being the core ECM platform that it already is.
Yeah. So it's able to basically replace that other system that, in regular, I'm thinking back from my days at GE Healthcare, where we'd take stuff out of the CCMS and then go and put it into the tool that we use for records management. That eliminates that. It all stays within, and you can operate it between using the Componize interface sitting on top of Alfresco.
Yep. We really like to look at all of these pieces as part of, it's a super overused term right now, but the digital transformation journey, right? All of these pieces working together are really how we help organizations through that process.
Okay, thank you. Anyone got any questions? Taking a look at the chat. Oh yeah, we answered that one. I'll click that down as finished answering. Okay, well,
all right.
Looks like that was an excellent presentation. You can contact Zia Consulting for any of your consultation needs. There you go.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you very much for coming up and presenting with us, and hopefully be seeing you at some conference soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
We'll be working together to produce some content as well. I'd like to really get together with you guys and do some demo videos and write some articles and things like that. So
Absolutely.
I'll encourage everyone on board to give us a follow.